Creating Innovation in the Classroom, Teaching with Smartphones by Lisa Collingwood Durbin. The journey began. Do you know just how many possible roles a smartphone can play in the classroom? I know I sure didn't. I will imagine that in the back pockets of most of your students, you will find an amazing technology tool. Maybe it's their BlackBerry, or perhaps it's their iPhone. But with these tools, there are so many possibilities. Read QR codes. These can be codes created by you to provide information about important class material. They can be used as a stopwatch. They can be used as an e-reader, which can replace those bulky and expensive text. It can also be used for video recording. Students will be able to take videos and to share those almost instantly. The calendar feature can be used to help students manage their time, or they can be used as a class polling device to solicit immediate feedback and responses without investing in the expensive clicker systems. That stood out above the rest. Project 1, Twitter in the Classroom. So what is Twitter? According to Wikipedia, it is a micro-blogging social networking service. With this service, students or individuals can send and receive text-based posts of up to 140 characters, also known as tweets. So how does Twitter play a role in the classroom? With Twitter, students would be able to use technology in order to communicate. The student can respond to instructor-provided questions and discussion points through Twitter. The students can respond to each other through Twitter. Or the instructor can use Twitter as an interactive tool with every student in the class. In essence, even the student who sits in the back who is hesitant to verbally respond may find a voice. Let's get started. There are a few things you will need. First of all, you will need a computer with internet access. The computer is only needed in the beginning. Students will need to use the computer in order to set up an email account if necessary, and also to access twitter.com in order to set up a Twitter account. Once the Twitter account has been established, then students will only need an internet-enabled smartphone in order to access Twitter from the classroom. For students who do not have the technology available, small groups could be set up so that everyone can be a participant. As a teacher, there are some things you need to know. First of all, you need to be aware of the free email account options students will have. Since you do need an email account in order to establish a Twitter account, students could be directed to things such as Gmail or Hotmail in order to set up an email account. Once you have ensured that all students have an email account and you have walked them through the procedures for creating an email account, then you can walk them through the procedures for creating a Twitter account. And finally, teachers need to be familiar with using Twitter effectively. It is an amazing tool and it can have such great possibilities for class participation, but in order to be effective, it must be used correctly. Our students also need to have some knowledge. First of all, they need basic computer skills, of which is really only just accessing the internet. The students also need to be familiar with using a smartphone for creating text entries, although I am venturing that most of our students already sort of have that mastered. They also need to be familiar with how to download and install an app on their phone, and Twitter applications are available for free, whether you are going through the iTunes App Store or you are going through the Droid Store. They also need to become familiar with the process for constructing appropriate and concise responses. This could take the most time, and it will be a matter of trial and error along with teacher feedback in order to fine-tune this process. So what will the students be asked to do? With their smartphones during class, students will be able to complete the following. They will be able to log into their Twitter account. Once they have logged in, they will be able to follow the class discussion electronically. During class discussion, they then can become active participants of the class discussion via their tweets. There are some procedures. There are some that must be performed before actually beginning. First of all, there needs to be instruction on creating an email account for those students who may not have one yet. There needs to be instruction on creating a Twitter account for those who do not have one. Then the students also need to know the process for following the class. Even students who are currently using Twitter may not know how to follow a particular group. And then students also need to be taught some guidelines for creating posts. The posts need to be no more than 140 characters, and they also need to be class appropriate. Once the basics have been taught, then we can begin using Twitter in the class. The teacher can pose a question or bring up a discussion point. From there, the students can be encouraged to share their thoughts through Twitter. Once the thoughts have been shared, then those posts can be shared with the class, and the teacher can be providing feedback either through Twitter or through verbal feedback. There are many advantages to using this innovation in the classroom. It's more engaging. Students will all want to participate. Students will all feel that they have something to say without raising their hand. It's all inclusive. Even that student who is very shy, who sits in the back, may feel more comfortable voicing an opinion in class. It's on demand. Students can follow the class discussion even if they cannot be in class, and they can also go back at a later date and review what happened during a class discussion. Retention may be improved due to their participation. Students will become active members, therefore they may retain more information, and they may be more motivated to attend class as well as to be attentive during class. Students will be more accountable. Instead of sitting in the back hoping you don't get called on, students will be looking forward to the opportunity to share thoughts and ideas. And feedback will be immediate. All students will feel that they have the attention of their teachers. A few disadvantages. First of all, some may be uneasy with the technology. It is still new to many, and it is something that can cause a little bit of fright. Not all may have access to internet-enabled smartphones. Therefore, small groups with at least one phone available can ease this. And some may struggle with the text limitations. For many, writing within the 140-word limit, 140 character limit can be of a concern, but with trial and error and with practice and feedback, that can be minimized. As most fear, this can be very distracting. However, by having a teacher who effectively knows how to use the technology, distractions can be minimized. Lesson 2. Using Study Boost with a smart messaging service or instant messaging service to help students prepare for exams. What is Study Boost? Study Boost is an interactive studying tool. Students are able to answer questions they have created or questions their teacher has created. However, unlike the typical study guides that students are sometimes given, these questions are given by way of either a text message or an instant message. But just how can Study Boost be so effective? First of all, students are provided with an on-demand study tool. This can travel with them. They can take it with them. They do not necessarily need to have heavy books or notebooks in order to prepare for an exam. Teachers and students are both able to add questions. The teachers can make an interactive study guide for their students. Every member of the class can answer the questions using their technology, and immediate feedback is provided on the correctness. No more waiting until the next day in class to check with the teacher right before the exam. Let's get started. There are a few things you will need. First of all, you will also need a computer and internet access, although this is also just part of the initial phase. Students will need to log on to studyboost.com in order to register and to set up an account. Once the account has been established, then only a smartphone will be needed. Ideally, students with smartphones who intend to use Study Boost should have unlimited text messaging plans to ensure that there are not additional fees for studying. Our teachers need to be able to do certain things. First of all, they need to know the procedures for creating a Study Boost account, which is actually quite simple. Secondly, they need to know how to use Study Boost effectively in the classroom. I would recommend perhaps playing a game with it the first time you use it in class as a study tool so that everyone sort of gets a feel for how it works. With that, our students need to have basic computer skills in order to access the internet, and they need to be familiar with using a smartphone to create either the text messaging or the instant messaging. Then students are asked to use their cell phones to respond to a series of questions which have already been created, or possibly to create their own questions to challenge their classmates. Just like Twitter, there are procedures which must be followed before actually beginning to use Study Boost. So first of all, the teacher should demonstrate how to set up a Study Boost account. Then the teacher should teach the course material. As the material is being taught, or once the material has been taught, then the teacher should guide the class to use Study Boost in order to prepare for the exam, which it should be approaching. During class, or after the material has been taught, the teacher can create batches of test-centered questions and also encourage students to review the material from class or review the text material and create batches of questions. Once the questions have been answered, then they can review the submissions. These students will get the immediate feedback, and the teacher can also receive a gauge as to how the students are progressing through the material. Study Boost is an amazing tool. Study Boost will allow our students to study with technology that they are already so used to using. The advantages include the familiar technology. The device is readily available to most. Students have remote access. If they are traveling with family or they're on a bus for an activity, waiting between dance classes or between sporting events, they are able to pull out their phone and they are able to access a study guide as long as they have cell service. And the feedback is immediate. The content is also adjustable, so as courses change, as material changes, as the needs of the class change, the questions can change. Student participation is not only encouraged, but students will be motivated to participate because they will enjoy being a part of the process. And the students can interact. They can create questions for each other. They can almost make it a game. There are disadvantages. For some, they may not have access to a smartphone. Of those with smartphones, some may not have access to unlimited messaging plans. And some may be uncomfortable with the technology. In closing, my lessons are very general in nature. They can be applied to any of my classes for any of the material I have taught. A note of caution, although I teach adults and it's not necessarily a concern for me, if you are using such tools in a public school setting, be very careful to discuss such projects with parents and administrators to ensure that you have permission and approval. Thank you.